Welcome to the Market Frontlines. I'm Lyndsay Malchuk. Now, there are gold stories, and then there are land stories. There are drill programs, and then there are long-term district plays that quietly build leverage most people don't even see coming. And today, I'm sitting down with Cynthia Le Sueur-Aquin, the CEO of Laurion, and Doug Vass, corporate relations of Laurion Mineral Exploration. Now, these two are leaders who have been unapologetic about thinking bigger than a single deposit, bigger than a headline intercept, and bigger than short-term market trends. Cynthia is building around Ishkoday with a district mindset, disciplined governance, and a technical strategy that goes far beyond just putting holes in the ground. Cynthia, Doug, it is so great to have you back with us and just to sit with you and chat about all things Laurion. How are you both?
Yeah, great to be here, Lyndsay. Thanks for having us.
Morning, Lyndsay. It's wonderful to be here again. It's great to talk to you. And of course, it's great to have Doug with me today. So it's very important for you to hear another mouthpiece to Laurion. His is a lot more in market depth. I think it's a great contribution.
Absolutely. Now, Doug, I'm going to start right out of the gate here around investors that you can shed some light on. Now, investors hear district scale all the time. But frankly, most companies don't actually control enough ground or infrastructure to make that statement meaningful. So when you look at Ishkoday, your land position, the existing infrastructure around it, and the multi-metal geological optionality you are sitting on, Doug, what does that really mean in terms of strategic leverage and long-term value that the market may not be pricing in yet?
Well, thank you, Lyndsay. I think the first thing to really point out about the Ishkoday is that it's 57 square kilometers that Laurion holds. And this is why we can start talking about a district scale mineralization, is because we have proven out over the last 10 years a 6 kilometer by 2.5 kilometer corridor. And this is what brings us, a lot of juniors out there. And by the way, I've been an investor in the junior sector for over 20 years. I'm an investor in Laurion myself. And so I want to say that first, because even though I am corporate relations, I was first an investor and still am to this day. And so the things that really stand out to me in Laurion in this project is that, first of all, it's jurisdiction. So we talked about district scale. It's one thing to have a district scale size mineralization, but it's another thing to be in the right location. And so one of the things I want to point out is that we are in what I would consider one of the most mine-friendly jurisdictions in the world, in Ontario, Canada. And we are north of Thunder Bay, 3 hours, close to the highway. We have hydropower. We are close to towns where there is people to be able to employ. And so when we talk about, proving out something that could someday be potentially a mine, which I think a lot of these juniors out there, they think that they could be a mine, but only actually 1 in 1,000 developments become a mine. And so one of the things that's exciting to me about Laurion, I've been on location. In 2018, I actually walked the property and was able to be on the Ishkoday and actually visually see gold in the rocks on the ground. And so it's exciting for me that it's in a place that's mining friendly in Ontario, that's close to all infrastructure, and it allows us to be able to look forward to something that could one day be an open pit mine.
That's so much insight already right there out of the gate. Cynthia, I'm going to bring you into this. Let's continue building on that. One thing I constantly press is management teams on their execution risk, especially in Canada, where, as you spoke, your jurisdiction is often marketed as safe, but still demands a lot of discipline. So while others focus only on ounces in the ground, how have you approached permitting, regulatory compliance, and community alignment in parallel with exploration? And further to that, how does that proactive governance actually protect shareholder capital rather than just check a box?
Well, and that's a great question. And again, it goes back to jurisdiction. Where are you? And we are in Ontario. And I know that you brought up jurisdiction many times in many of your discussions, but to me, jurisdiction houses so many aspects of a project, not just infrastructure, not just location, not just size, but your communities, your regional geological team, and the ministry. How the ministry supports you, how Ontario provincial government supports you. And I think this is the big thing, because I think that as a junior exploration company, you want to hedge your bets in the best way possible to bring production and development to your project. So how do you narrow down all of those aspects? Is infrastructure. That is absolutely huge. That reduces your exploration costs substantially. And I mean, we're just sort of 10 kilometers up Highway 11 on a gravel highway with very easy access to the project, with logging roads throughout, which means that we can be on the project 24/7. That's it, and incredible for us. Having that access to service, having ease of being able to bring your teams into the project and take your time and be involved with the project without having to fly and fly. This is huge. This is part of that jurisdiction that we talk about. And then I think the most important part is your communities, how your communities support you, how you work with your communities, how you're able to bring in support and labor in your communities. For me, my First Nations are very, very important to us. We have 3 on the Ishkoday project. We have exceptional communication. We've got exploration agreements, and it's not just an exploration agreement. It's a life beyond that exploration agreement in how we move the project forward and how many of the First Nations are actually involved and are part of our exploration teams and project. So, talking about permitting. So this comes again to this whole aspect of jurisdiction and where you are and your ability to move your permitting first. So I think we've got the amazing benefit of a surface stockpile, which came from the historic production from the shaft between 1936 and 1942. So what you need to know is that this surface stockpile hosts ore, which at $32 an ounce between 1936 and 1942 was not worth much, but in today it's about 1.75 grams. It's 190,000 tons on surface, and then we have in total, if we look at the surface stockpile and the tailings, there's roughly about 10,000 ounces. And if look at where our gold price is today, $5,000 an ounce. Do the math on what that is. So it's a very, very valuable asset for us. Either a collateralized or just an asset. The ability for us to move through the permitting phase is very important for us. I've always seen this as very prospective, right from 2020 when we commenced the environmental work and permitting for the surface stockpile. And we've completed this. We've submitted our project descriptions. It's in the hands of the ministry. We're waiting for their response so that we can provide them our following submissions for the permitting. We're very excited about this because we can see this moving forward. And of course, having a ministry that works with you. And, I fundamentally believe that being in Ontario, and I'm starting to see a lot of other companies with their permitting coming through and being very fluid. I'm very excited about this, that we're going to be one of those, hopefully this year. And this opportunity presents itself as a wonderful opportunity for potentially early production. So I think that's the first part. And again, to have, exploration and a production scenario on dual mineralization. I think the picture that we're paying for this very large word jurisdiction and district scale optionality is huge.
You hit on some very, very important points there. Community is huge, for one. And the fact that you're actually incorporating the community within your plans too. I mean, that is massive. And that's really what a lot of investors want to hear too. It's not just all about the drill results and everything that we can see on the internet. It's what's happening behind those drill results. What's happening with the management team? What's happening with the community? And how involved are you getting them? So from here, Cynthia, I want to push that a little bit deeper into something most retail investors never actually see. So with drill results, yes, they make headlines, but the methodology behind those results rarely get any airtime. And that's where I want to put the spotlight for a second. Before a single meter is drilled, there is targeting, modeling, structural interpretation, and even serious capital at work. So walk us through how Laurion is using integrated 3D modeling, geophysics, trenching, channel sampling, structural analysis, and even AI-assisted visualization to tighten those targeting and reduce geological uncertainty?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And as much as I can, I try to be very educational. I do a lot of LinkedIn posts because I think it's very important to really be educational, because I think most people don't recognize that when you access a piece of property and it is just green fields, how much work goes into that before you can actually drill the first hole. And I have to say that we are in a very great, greenstone belt. So it doesn't give us an absolute blessing of a project that isn't complex. And what we do have is a project that is deformed and folded, and a lot of understanding needs to be undertaken to understand this project. So we've spent a lot of time on the ground completing channel sampling, excavating to do the channel sampling, to do mapping, so understanding what every fold, every bedding, and all of that data actually gets put into, we've got an ImageGo software, and that data goes into our database. And this is how we build the 3D model. So and the 3D model isn't just something that is new. This we've had this now for the last couple of years. We've been building this, and it's not essentially part of AI. AI is a little different. But the importance of the 3D modeling is that it defines the structures, it defines the faults, it defines where your high grade areas are, where your low grade areas. It defines what you are focused on. And when you are in such a complex environment like the Ishkoday, where you've got an epithermal environment, and then you've had a later overprinting of an orogenic, not just once but twice, and then you've got a lot of deformation in between. I can't even begin to tell you the complexity and effort that it takes to really understand. So it's not as most people think, you just bring in a drill and you stick in a drill because you can see it on surface. It's got to be down there somewhere. It is absolutely not. A lot of work goes behind the scenes, a lot of effort, a lot of team time, a lot of understanding, to develop our targets, to ensure that when we go out there with the drill and we put the drill into the ground, that we're targeting 100% in our drill efforts. And for us, that's very, very important. The measurements that come from the field and from inside in the core logging facility, because we do all of our core is oriented. We take a lot of structural measurements, and as I'm sure most people do, but I mean, this is obviously my personal discussion about Ishkoday. This is important because this creates the targeting and develops the project into what it will be. Because without all of these steps, you could eventually just say, I can't find it. I don't know where it is. It isn't there. And I'm walking away. That's not how it is. There's a lot of effort and a lot of teamwork that goes into creating what ultimately will be a deposit and for you to go into production. And we are in this fantastic setting where we do have two past historic mines. So this is a really great indication of mineralization. So the most important thing of district scale optionality in terms of geology is having continuity. It's not just a one target showing, but having continuity where it's going for 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers. It has width and it has strike potential. So all of these things are really, really important, and you've got to prove the thesis again and again and again.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Doug, I want to bring you back into this conversation. Now, on the corporate side, the corporate relations side, we hear about headlines all the time, and you are very, very active on socials. And for anybody who is not following them, at least on LinkedIn, there is sprinkles of insight there that's endless. So head over to LinkedIn, make sure that you're following Cynthia, make sure you're following Laurion. But Doug, from your point of view, what is it that you are seeing that investors still are not understanding?
Well, I think one of the things, Lyndsay, that really attracted me from the beginning is how much skin in the game Cynthia had from the very start. And so currently, right now, Cynthia and her husband hold over 10% of the outstanding shares. And, of all the years that I've been investing in junior companies, that was one thing that the top of my list of things to ask a CEO is how many shares do they own and what percentage of the company. And so then to add to that, the board has 18% of the outstanding shares. And so that's one thing I always like to point out is because there's an accountability there. When you're investing into the junior sector, it's a risky thing to invest into junior exploration companies. And so you have to look at top things that actually make sense to put your money in there and keep low risk. And so what this does is it creates an accountability so that you win together and you lose together. And so you'll find that I want to speak about Cynthia because she tends to sell herself short and she's very humble. She is very much a boots on the ground CEO and very disciplined and frugal with the treasury. And this is a very important thing for me as an investor, but also as a corporate advisor and corporate relations is that I look at when investors come into the company, they want to make sure that Cynthia and the team is really being disciplined about how they spend the money. And what Cynthia has done is she has spent a lot of her time in the last 10 years on the property, unlike other CEOs that are going from Toronto to Vancouver to Zurich to Colorado. Cynthia was out in Beardmore, Ontario, with her rubber boots on and in the freezing cold sometimes, working with the geologist. She understands the property intimately. And I think this is something that really sets LME apart, is that you have a CEO that understands the project, the community, has relations in the jurisdiction, is actually out there working with her people. And I think that's something that really attracted me. It shows me that she's serious about her investment. She wants to make sure that we have something long term here and also that there's going to be a big upside because for her to win and for shareholders to win, there needs to be an upside. And here's where I want to kind of draw us into this is that I think one of the things that is really important about LME is that we are surrounded by some majors. We have Alamos Gold to the north and Equinox Gold to the south. And so when you look at where the land base is, it's not just to have a district scale mineralization, but it's to have the potential that one of these companies is going to eventually come and knock on our door. And we know that that is likely going to happen in the future. And so one of the things that we're doing in 2026 that's really exciting is we're working towards our first MRE. And so when we come out with an actual resource estimate, this is something that's going to be significant for investors and for the market because we're going to prove out what Cynthia has been working on for 10 years, building out this very large corridor mineralization. It's now going to finally come to the market and show everybody what, in some senses, has been kind of hiding is now going to come out into the forefront.
I'm going to bookend this here with a question towards both of you, and it's a question that is rarely asked. Cynthia, I'll start with you here. In a gold market where companies often rush towards that resource update to satisfy those short-term expectations, how do you balance the pressure to publish versus the discipline to build scale and optionality first? And if I go wider with that, at what point does strategic patience become the real differentiator between a company that survives and one that actually commands a premium?
I think that, first and foremost, Lyndsay, that's a question that comes to me from within. So going back to what Doug said, I am the biggest shareholder. And I think that this is a huge driver because at the end of the day, I can examine myself for where I am in all of this. I believe in what I'm doing. I believe in what I've got. And this is why I had the shareholding that I do. Above that is that I am the one that it has the boots on the ground. That being said, I always have to say to myself, don't fall in love with a baby because it's very, very easy to fall in love with the project and just have this belief that drives you. I do not have that because I always ask myself that question. Don't fall in love with a baby. And if you have, pull yourself back and rethink this. The reason why I spent a lot of time on the project is because I need to believe, I need to understand, and I need to drive the team I need to be that checkbox that if something is not being done or something is not being thought of or re-examined biases, because biases are a real danger on a project, and people always allow biases to creep in. You've got to be that mediator and pull that back and re-examine. So I think that is, first of all, is the most important thing. And yes, it takes time to build a project. I heard somebody make that bland statement, is that from the time of a greenfield discovery to the time of production is 20 years. That's great if you don't go through boom and bust cycles and you've got, lots of dollars every year to develop your project, but it isn't like that. And not every project is the same. Every project has its own little, quirks that, as I said to you, ours is very complex structurally. So it takes a lot of understanding. The value that we're creating isn't shown to investors. All of the behind the scenes, the team planning, the work, the understanding of structure, the discussions, the integration of geophysics, doing inversions of the geophysics to understand sort of the finer edges of structure. This doesn't create value in the market, but ultimately, when you get this all together and you have a very clear definition and you start moving your project, this is where it creates the value. And yes, it takes time. For me, it takes a lot of discipline to keep myself in a conservative mode and to keep myself focused. Because yes, I can hear the noise. I hear shareholders. I hear investors. And I really want to give them everything that they wish. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like being mother and using your conservative self to manage this process, because ultimately what you're doing is the right step, is you are working in the right direction to create that value. So remember, there's two of me. I am the investor and I'm also the CEO. So I have this internal battle of wanting to make everybody happy, and wanting to ensure that I drive the value of the project. But I know intrinsically our approach is a good approach. It's solid. We have an exceptional team. We have some very, very smart people on our team. And I know that we're going to be very successful with this project as we develop it.
Amazing. Now, Doug, we have about 1 minute left, but give us your perspective on this as well.
Yeah, I think, Laurion is positioned very well at this time. You've got gold and silver and precious metal prices at all-time highs. And here this year in 2026, we're working towards an MRE. And we've just brought on to our board of directors two very strategic people, one being Vikram Jairman and the other Sean Gosel, that I want to point out. We're bringing them in at a very strategic time because of where we are in the journey for LME. And so, I want to speak to those that are investors. I think it's important to look at the people that are on the board, and these people bring a ton of experience. Vikram bringing experience from DRA Global, where he actually works on metallurgy with projects. He was currently involved in the Kinross Great Bear merger. And so this is bringing a ton of experience to LME and allowing us to sort of direct the ship as we get into a time that's going to actually create a lot of value for shareholders. I think that LME, and you may hear this a lot out there, but truly I believe LME is undervalued. And the reason is because this is the year that we're going to prove it out. This is the year while we're aligning the right people and the timing to bring out a resource estimate. And so I'm very excited about what's going to happen in the coming year.
All of the things that we mentioned today in our discussions, I think this is very important for the market, specifically for the institutional retail people, is that if you can eliminate most of the risk in your environment, in your property, your exploration, in your permitting, and I think that we've been very successful in doing that because we kept our focus. I think that is very, very critical, specifically in this market.
So true. So true. I could sit here and talk about your project for days. It just goes so much more deeper than just the surface and just what you see. But I want to thank you both for coming, and truly do come back soon. I'd really appreciate that.
Thank you, Lyndsay.
Thank you, Lyndsay.
Again, that was Cynthia Le Sueur-Aquin and Doug Vass of Laurion Minerals Exploration, trading on the venture under the ticker LME. And you can learn more at laurion.ca. For investors, get serious about understanding where long-term value is actually being constructed in the junior gold space, not just where headlines are flashing. And keep this company on your radar. I'm Lyndsay Malchuk with Abaton Media, and this is the Market Frontlines. We'll see you next time.